Did you hear that?
Riley whispered, gripping my arm tightly.
Yeah, I think we should bail.
I let out a shaky little laugh. Riley scoffed, yanking her arm away.
Right, so you can come back later and claim my discovery. Forget it.
She immediately dropped down low and started creeping toward that cabin window. I hissed at her to stop, but she just ignored me. I finally gave up and followed. We got to the side of the cabin where there was a low window. It was really dirty, but the frame was messed up, leaving this tiny gap. We peeked in. Inside the cabin was pitch dark, with only one lamp glowing on a table. A woman was lying on the floor, with the wrists and ankles tied up. Her hair was a mess, and she was crying, wincing in pain. A tall guy stood over her, grinning like a clown. He was snapping photos with a small camera. She was whispering, begging him to stop, but he just ignored her. My twin sister Riley and I shared a look. Both of us wanted to bolt, but we had to help the lady. At that time, we were 10, basically growing up in the woods behind our neighborhood in Asheville. We'd spent the whole of our weekend playing treasure hunt there. Our parents were cool with it, as long as we were back before the street lights popped on. We had our own named trails, a creek we dammed up every summer, and this hollow tree where we kept all our important junk. We knew those woods the way some kids know their own backyard. So, one late summer Sunday, when Riley came tearing up, saying she had found this little cabin buried back in the trees and weeds, I had to see it. She took me farther than normal, following the creek, and found it through a break in some super overgrown bushes. It was rather old, the boards were grayed out, and the roof was dipping on one side. We'd been exploring those woods forever, so the fact that we'd never seen this place before felt both crazy and super exciting. We were both maybe 20 feet from the front door when this super loud scream made us stop cold. And that's how we got into this situation with this scary man and this woman almost hanging on her life. We waited until the man put his camera down on the table and walked out the front door. We could hear his boots on the porch. Riley pointed at the back of the cabin. She had spotted a door. We crawled to it. Riley tried the handle, and it opened. We stayed low and moved fast. Riley reached the woman first and started fumbling with the ropes on her wrists, while I kept a panicked eye on the front door. The woman's eyes nearly popped out of her head when she saw us.
Leave.
She sobbed, shaking her head, but Riley already had one hand loose, and I'd managed to free her ankles. Just as she managed to scramble up, the front door flew open, and the guy barged in. We bolted before he could even get close. For someone who'd just been tied up, that woman was surprisingly fast. We hit the woods at full sprint. I could hear the guy right behind us, crashing through the brush and screaming at us to stop, yelling we had no idea what we were doing.
This way.
I grabbed her hand and steered her toward the fence, while Riley took the lead. We made it to the fence line in maybe 5 minutes. I squeezed through the usual gap. Riley followed, and I turned back to help the woman through. But she'd stopped right at the edge of the trees.
If you cross that fence, I'll make sure the whole of your bloodline feels sorry, Monica!
The man yelled. The woman was wailing now. She told us she was sorry, but we should just head home and forget all about it.
No.
She hiccuped before she turned around and walked back into the woods. Riley and I ran to our house and told our dad everything. He immediately called 911. Officers went to the cabin that night. By the time they got there, it was burning. The fire had been set recently from inside. When it burned out, there was nothing left but the foundation and some metal from the roof. They never found the man or the woman. Investigators checked missing persons reports against the description we gave of her for months afterward, but nothing matched. I'm a corporate attorney now, and Riley's a nurse over in Charlotte. We still bring it up every time we hang out. We've gotten over the trauma, but the whole episode wouldn't leave our heads. We still can't wrap our heads around why someone so close to getting away would choose to go back to that nightmare. What kind of hold did he have on her that she chose that agony voluntarily? Riley and I have spent years playing that over in our minds. We still couldn't settle on an answer. Whenever I see stories about people staying in messed up situations, I think of her. From the outside, it makes no sense, but there was obviously something going on that we couldn't see. I just really hope she eventually found a way out for real. We moved to Westlake right after Dad passed away from a heart attack when I was 6. Mom thought Hardin County had too many ghosts, and we needed a clean slate. I missed the huge house, the tall trees, and all that open land for a bit, but once school started and I made the baseball team, Hardin County became a place I used to live. Eventually, Mom also started teaching at an elementary school a few blocks away and met another teacher who actually made her laugh again. As the years went by, both of us moved on, but the recurring nightmare stayed. I started having it maybe a year after Dad passed, and it never really stopped. In the dream, I see myself standing in the woods at night while it's pouring, with thunder and lightning rumbling overhead. There's a small cabin right at the tree line with a single light on inside. I head up to the window and see a guy sitting in a rocking chair, facing away from me. He rocks for a moment before he slowly turns around and stares. His face is covered in thick, old-school stage makeup. His eyes are bulging out, and his teeth are crooked. Up close, he looks even more horrifying.
Come close, Peter,
he calls, laughing like a maniac. I start panicking, but can't move. My teeth chatter, and right as he stands up to grab me, I wake up sweating and screaming for help. For the longest time, I just figured it was the grief messing with my head. My mom always backed that up too. She'd tell me I had a wild imagination and that I shouldn't overthink things. So I kept it to myself. But the dream didn't go away and kept showing up well into my mid-20s. Right before homecoming that year, my girlfriend Kathy walked out on me. She told me she couldn't handle being with a guy who constantly screamed and talked in his sleep. That was my wake-up call. I knew I needed to get some professional help. A friend pointed me toward a psychiatrist named Dr. Halloran. I laid it all out for him. After listening to my story, he told me that having a dream this vivid and consistent for over 20 years definitely wasn't normal.
That could be a buried memory, Peter. Sometimes your brain locks away traumatic fragments in your subconscious, even when your conscious mind can't remember them.
He suggested the only way to make the dream stop would be to go back to that old property and figure out exactly what happened, but I don't remember where that property was. I was trying to pinpoint its location based on the fuzzy memories I had left when the hospital called. Mom had taken a tumble at school, and the scans were alarming. She sounded more drained than scared on the phone. She told me she wanted to see me and handle some paperwork. When I drove up to Cleveland, there was a folder waiting for me. Inside was the deed to our ancestral Hardin County property.
Sell it as soon as you can. Don't let it sit there. Promise me you won't.
Her desperation sounded weird, but I thought maybe the memories of Dad were still too much for her. I took the folder home and let it sit on my desk for 2 weeks before I finally got around to spreading the property map out under my lamp one night. The place was way bigger than I thought. It was mostly woods, but tucked in the northwest corner was this tiny, unlabeled square. I tried to remember what it was, but couldn't. Drawn by dread and curiosity, I headed out to the county the first day off I got. The old farmhouse was still there, but barely standing. The roof was caving in on one side and the windows were all smashed out. I spent a while hiking around the property until I finally reached the northwest corner. I found the cabin exactly where the map showed it. It was merely a bunch of weathered gray boards with the woods closing in from every direction. As soon as I laid eyes on it, I got this pit in my stomach. My heart started pounding as I walked in. Inside, the place smelled like rotting wood and mildew. I kept walking and came across a trap door in the floor with a massive padlock on it. My vision started flashing, and my hands were shaking so badly that it took me a while to finally pry it open. Once it finally gave way, a blast of cold, damp air hit me square in the face. Looking down, I saw familiar concrete steps heading into the dark basement. The walls were lined with shelves overflowing with old film canisters, VHS tapes, and trashed cardboard sleeves and heavy binders. I reached for the nearest binder and flipped it open. I couldn't even make it 30 seconds before I lost my lunch. In each one of them, my dad was doing stuff I couldn't even utter. The people in those videos were the same ones who'd gone missing 2 decades ago. I remembered them from the posters and newspapers, and in every single shot, he was wearing that same thick, creepy stage makeup. I sat there in my car out in the field for what felt like forever, as everything started coming back to me in bits and pieces. I was only 6, and it was pouring rain. I woke up to the screams and laughter and followed the light to the cabin window. There, I saw him through the glass, plucking teeth out of a bloody, barely conscious man. My mom found me standing out there in the storm, carried me back to the house, and tucked me in without ever saying a single word about it. She knew. I called the Hardin County Sheriff right from that field and told them exactly what was in the basement before I drove back to Cleveland. One glance at me, and Mom knew I'd figured it out. She broke down crying, telling me she was only trying to protect her family. I was disgusted and walked out. We haven't really talked since. Forensics spent about 2 weeks tearing the place apart and found the remains of 4 men buried in the woods. My dad had been dead for 11 years, so he never had to answer for any of it. The nightmares stopped that night I made that call. I wish I could say it feels like closure, but it mostly feels like I traded one mystery for a much darker reality. I graduated from Oregon State University in June with a degree in environmental science. I loved exploring in the woods, so when my roommate told me about this hiking trail, I decided to go. I drove up to the woods north of Tillamook on a Friday afternoon and pulled into a trailhead lot that only had a couple of other cars. I'd packed light since I was only staying one night. The trail was easy to follow for the first few hours before it started getting kinda sketchy. Around 4:30, I hit a bad patch of loose gravel on a ridge descent and went down hard. I tumbled about 15 feet before a tree root stopped my slide. When I tried sitting up, my right ankle hurt so bad that I screamed. To top it off, my phone screen was spiderweb from the fall. It still turned on, but the touchscreen was basically useless. I sat there for probably 10 minutes, thinking through my options. I was at least 2 hours from the trailhead on a good ankle, and the temperature was already dropping. Staying put overnight alone with an injury in those woods was a bad idea. I grabbed a branch big enough to use as a crutch and started hobbling along. About an hour in, I caught a whiff of wood smoke. I followed the scent and stumbled upon this tiny rundown cabin that looked like the forest was trying to swallow it. It was tucked between massive trees on all sides, but I could see a light flickering in the window. Figuring it might be a private rental for hikers or maybe an old, unmaintained ranger cabin, I knocked, hoping whoever was inside could help me. An elderly Asian woman who looked to be in her late 60s answered. She was wearing a chunky gray cardigan with some flour dusted on the sleeves. Her silver hair was pulled back in a loose tie.
Hi, I'm Liz Harper.
I explained how I'd come out to the woods for a little break, but ended up having a nasty accident. She told me her name was May and said I was more than welcome to stay for a bit. I thanked her and stepped inside. The cabin was tiny and felt pretty dated. She had me sit down in the only chair in the room so she could take a look at my ankle. She went over to a shelf full of clay jars and started mixing a few things. It turned into a dark greenish paste that smelled like pine needles. She packed it around my ankle and wrapped it with some strips of cloth. Within minutes, the injury had healed.
Holy cow! What is that stuff?
Just some medicine I make. You want some tea?
I nodded. While May got the tea going, we chatted. She told me she'd been living out here off the grid for over 20 years, making herbal cures and growing all her own food.
My son's been really sick for a while now. I'm doing everything in my power to pull him through. I'm sorry. It's all right. Would you like to meet him?
I agreed. She took me to the back of the cabin, where a guy in his early 20s was lying on a bed that looked way too small for him. To me, he actually seemed pretty healthy. May kept talking about his illness, but I could barely focus on what she was saying. The guy looked really, really familiar. I racked my brain and suddenly recognized him from the missing persons flyer stapled to a pole right outside the coffee shop in Corvallis where I worked.
How long did you say he had been sick?
Since he was born.
Excuse me, I need to start preparing his meals now.
I waited until May was back in the kitchen before I started shaking him awake. He came to slowly, totally spaced out, but the second he realized I was there, he lunged and grabbed my wrist. He'd rasped out that she had drugged him and brought him here. He'd been trapped there for weeks, and every time he felt strong enough to try and bolt, she'd hit him with some medicine that totally wiped him out. We need to leave. Before we even had a chance to make a break for it, I heard May's footsteps thumping down the hallway. A second later, she was standing in the doorway. She still had that smile on her face, but her eyes had turned dead and ice cold.
I made you kids some dinner. Come eat.
The guy managed to get up, but he was incredibly shaky. I hooked my arm under him to prop him up and told May that we were leaving. She kept staring. I noticed her fingers fumbling with a little packet, like she was about to throw something at us. Before she could do anything, I swung my crutch with everything I had. It clipped her hard on the shoulder, sending her stumbling into the doorframe. We shoved past her and scrambled out the front door into the night. As we ran, I could hear her crying out behind us. She was wailing about being abandoned, but we didn't stop until we reached a ranger station. Nathan spilled everything. He said she'd picked him up hitchhiking and kept him for months. The ranger called for an ambulance and the cops right away. By the next afternoon, officers were already on their way to the cabin. But by the time they made it, she had fled. Nathan spent 2 days in the hospital before his family drove up from Portland. His toxicology report cited a plant-derived sedative that they couldn't even identify. If I hadn't showed up and recognized him when I did, he'd have eventually started to fade. The cops are still trying to track her down, but I seriously doubt she'll turn up anytime soon. She's way too clever and determined for that. She was on a mission, and if Nathan couldn't deliver, she'd probably already be out there looking for the next person who could.